Welcome back to Sharks Tapping. My name is Hal. I'm your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks, and we're going to get started right away. We're going to head over to Boca Ciega Bay, which is over by Tampa in Florida. The date, August 30th, 2000. Thadeus Kubinski, 69 years old. He and his wife decide they're going to go for a swim, 4:30 in the afternoon, off of their dock. A couple minutes before they go into the water, they heard thrashing in the water, some splashing, and they didn't think anything of it, and they go to get in the water. Mrs. Kubinski goes down the ladder while Mr. Kubinski goes and jumps right in. Mr. Kubinski is bitten soon after he jumps in, right in the chest. His wife looks over, sees a dorsal fin, and sees the body of a shark on her husband, and she goes up the ladder, runs and gets help. They get back, and Thadeus is laying on top of the water. They get him out of the water, and he had already passed away before they even got him there. The single bite was brutal. It goes from his chest all the way down to his hip. It punctured his liver. It crushed his ribs, and they said it was an instantaneous death. Bull shark, 9-foot bull shark, 400 pounds. Shark like that hits you, it wants to eat you. So this is definitely an accidental bite. He just jumped in at the wrong time, and that shark acted on it territorially, accidentally. So it's both territorial but accidental, because the shark didn't want to do the damage that it did. It just was biting out because something just jumped into the water and probably scared it. So there's a bull shark story that one bite and on its way, but it is a fatality and not a consume, and we will move on. Okay, now we're going to head over to California, San Francisco, Baker Beach. The date, Thursday, May 7th, 1959. Albert Kogler Jr., 18 years old. He's with his friend Shirley O'Neill, also 18. They're going to go for a swim at 5 o'clock at night. They decide to go out into the water, and they go out swimming. At 5:30, they get themselves 50 yards from shore. They're in 35-foot deep water, but they're 30 feet from a masthead sticking up out of the water. So they're by a shipwreck at night, diving, well, at dusk. Those aren't very good things to do. So they're swimming, they're a few meters apart when all of a sudden they were in the water 15 minutes. Shirley says a shark surfaced between the two of them and grabbed onto Al. She looks over and she says she never saw the head, she never saw the tail. All she saw was the middle of the body sticking up and the dorsal fin. And he disappears under the water, and there's thrashing going on, she says, for 3 minutes, and finally Al pops up to the top of the water, and he looks at her, and she says, "Is the shark still there?" And he says, "Help me." So she swims out to him. She says she saw no sign of the shark, and she starts bringing him into shore, and the people on the shore throw him a fishing line so that she can drag him in. So she gets him into the beach. He's in bad shape. He's baptized on the beach. They're waiting on the U.S. Coast Guard because of the rough terrain. It takes them 30 to 40 minutes to even get to him. And he ends up not making it from the wounds. The shark actually hit him and left, but it wasn't just a one-off deal. And I'll have to read a little bit of this from the coroner, because I don't know what most of it means. The laceration involves the scapula and posterior shoulder girdle from the rib cage. The left anterior humerus also had an avulsed flap of skin 13 by 8 centimeters in a roughly oval shape. The margin of this were also sharp and jagged. The forearm of the left had multiple 1 to 3 centimeter puncture wounds in it. The right arm was bit. The left arm was taken off, amputated, so it ate his left arm. And here, the coroner, at the coroner's inquest, determined the cause of death to be insanguination, the result of an accidental shark bite. There is nothing accidental about that. That is more territorial than accidental any day of the week. That thing was having at him. It must have bit him multiple times. He was in bad enough shape when they got him onto the shore to baptize the guy. So back in 1959, another case of just flat out lying about a shark attack. I'm not calling it a predation attempt to eat him, because it didn't really take chunks out of him. I think that was more territorial than anything. And if it was hunting for food, it probably would have ate him. So I think it was territorial, and that's how I'm going to mark that one down. Great white, 5 meters long. Okay, now we're going to head over to Maui, Hawaii, to a spot called S-Turns, which is on Kahana Beach. The date is April 7th, 2004. Willis McInnis, 57 years old. He and two friends are out We're going to do some early morning surfing. They're known as the early birds there. Tina, Roger, and Willis McInnis are all out there. Tina says they were looking at Willis out trying to catch a wave, and he missed a wave, so he turned around to paddle back out. Meantime, Tina gets a wave and she rides it a little bit and falls off of it, so she turns to paddle herself back out when she sees that Willis is out there screaming for help. They get over to Willis and he's clinging to his board. They say he's still in the water but holding on to his board, and he says, "My leg is toast." They can tell by the amount of blood in the water that he is losing a ton of blood, and they can see it from the damage in the leg. So it takes them 15 minutes to get to shore, in which time Roger is trying to coax, tell him, "Stay with us, don't go to sleep." He's going into shock. Tina had went ahead of him to get a cell phone to call for the help. They get him onto the beach, and he's in such bad shape that a Catholic priest ends up baptizing him on the spot. They had to wait. It was rough terrain there, so the Coast Guard, it took them 30 to 40 minutes to get to him. So he ended up passing away. It wasn't trying to consume him, but it took 2 chunks off of his leg. They said they were 13.5 centimeters wide, done by a tiger shark. So that's the MO of a tiger shark. It'll bite something that's dangling in the water, on top of the water. It's gonna, it's a test, not a test biter, but it's a test eater. It'll taste whatever it can see that's floating on top of that water. It doesn't care. If you're a license plate, it's gonna eat you. So that's our story. Tiger shark, fatality, non-consume, and we will move on. Okay, now we're gonna head over to North Carolina, to a spot called Corolla, which is a barrier island town off of mile marker 4.5. The date, September 12th, 2009. Richard Snead, 60 years old, is on vacation. He's staying with his family, and at 9:30 at night, his first night there, he decides to tell him he's going to go for a walk on the beach. Goes for his walk on the beach and gets back. Tells him, "I'm going to go for a swim." Goes out there for a swim. Doesn't come back. They find his glasses on the beach. They don't find his body till 5 days later. When they found his body, the coroner said that he identified the 2 bites to his lower extremities and 1 to his hand, a defensive wound to a hand, and that the 2 bites were not life-threatening. They were survivable bites by this first shark. And by the time they found his body 5 days later, other sharks had at him, and crustaceans removed plenty of the tissue, almost skeletizing parts of the body. So he was in bad shape when they found him, but they were able to get those 2. It was probably a small shark. You're swimming at 10:30 at night in the ocean, that's more bound to happen than if you're swimming at noon in the ocean, that's for sure. So, that's our story with him. It's a fatality. It's not one that I'm going to cover, though, because I'm pretty sure that this is a pretty small shark, if those 2 bites were survivable, because Mark Meeker had a bite from a decent-sized shark. And that was a 8 to 10 inch long wound on his calf, but it was still survivable. So yeah, I'm thinking this is a smaller shark, and we're not going to put this with the tallies, but I wanted to tell you the story so you don't swim at 10:30 at night in the ocean. We'll move on. Okay, we're going to finish out our unprovoked attacks over off of Oahu, Hawaii, a spot called Kahe Point. The date is October 14th, 1989. Ray Mel Jr. and a friend are diving. They're scuba diving, and they're 750 feet from shore, 27 meters deep, and they're by a discharge pipe that comes from a power plant. They actually call the beach Electric Beach because of the power plant. And they're by a discharge pipe at 4:30 in the afternoon when Ray disappears. His buddy does a circle search for him and can't find him, so he goes and gets help, and they do a search for him. They find his body 200 feet from where he disappeared, 200 feet away from the pipe, and it's missing its, I believe, left arm and his head. Before they can get to the body, another large shark comes up and eats most of the remains. So all they were able to get of Ray Mel Jr. was some tissue and parts of his scuba gear, and that's it. Sharks did away with everything else. They said it was a tiger shark that did the bites. And could have been 1 bite, could have been 2 bites, but that's just like a tiger. Just like I said, they're going to take a chunk and leave you alone. Larger shark came around later and did it in. I don't know what kind of shark, they don't say. So we're going to put that down as a fatality, non-consume. Even though it took a bite out of them, they lost some stuff. It wasn't trying to eat the person in whole. So that's how that's going to go down. And we're going to move on to our provoke segment, You're an Idiot. We're going to wrap up with our Provoke segment. You are an idiot. Today's idiot is Shaylin Borkowski. She was 23 at the time, back in 2016. Boca Raton, Florida. She's a new resident there. She goes out snorkeling with friends, and she comes out of the water with a dying baby nurse shark attached to her arm, to her forearm. They ended up having to take her to the hospital with it, and they cut it off there. Dead nurse shark because this idiot wanted to reach out and grab the shark's tail and probably flip it upside down and make it go, you know, hypnotized, whatever they do. They kind of go into a state where they're not active. So, you know, this shark was doing nothing but minding its own business. Now, some witnesses, which I'm thinking are her and her friends, were saying some other kids were provoking the shark, but when they investigated, they found out she was the one trying to grab the thing when it turned and grabbed her. So we got a dead shark because of the idiot Shaylin Borkowski. Congratulations, you're our idiot of the show. We'll be back a couple more times this week with a special Halloween episode later on, probably this Sunday. It's going to be extended. We'll have a few more attacks on that one, and I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope you'll join us. But as always, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.